Trails Third is the epilogue to the Sky arc of the Kiseki series. It's a game I've heard many people say you can skip since there aren't that many new areas within the game, but they are so wrong. Whilst there aren't that many new areas, the main appeal to Trails Third, at least to me, is the doors. There are several doors around the world which open up special cutscenes, stories, or minigames. Each door requires a certain condition to enter and provides a reward such as new crafts, ornaments, or weapons. Initially, I thought the doors idea wouldn't really grow on me, and I wouldn't really like it that much. Walking around the world and experiencing everything firsthand is what makes Trails so great to me, but as time went on, I really enjoyed it. As a one-off game, the idea is really cool. The doors allow Falcom to expand on the backstories of characters, helping to recontextualize their actions, and to also give us glimpses into parts of Zemuria we were still yet to see. Many of the characters that didn't really get their chance to shine in Trails SC get what I believe are their best moments within these doors, properly characterizing them. Some doors also lend themselves to the fact that there isn't much of a focus on gameplay within them, giving them the time and the space to flesh out many characters. The doors are split into 3 categories. There are 5 moon doors, which involve longer, bigger stories that can take anywhere from an hour to a few hours to complete. There are 15 star doors, which contain short stories about the Trails universe. Sometimes these stories involve papers, manuscripts, reports, etc. Finally, there are 5 sun doors, which are exclusively minigames. These doors can be hit or miss, but I appreciate the effort Falcom put into making them nonetheless. These doors are partly why Trails Third is one of the most memorable games to me. Some of the best moments in any Trails game are in these doors. The doors that I like more will be properly analysed and discussed, whilst I might skip over parts of some doors that I don't really like as much. Many of the doors contain very dark and upsetting moments, which I will discuss. I'll be ranking all the doors on this tier list here. The tier list is ordered within the tiers, the better doors within tiers sitting here on the left and the worst on the right. I'm guessing everyone here knows how a tier list works. The better doors are at the top and the worst doors are at the bottom. The best are in peak. Door 1, Orbital Gear Project. Moon Door 1 is really weird. It has a really weird setup as well. It's the first door you come across and there's almost no indication that this is going to be a 40-minute cutscene. There's no opportunity to save within the door either. So most people just walk into it, then realise how long it is and then get really tired and have to sit through the whole door. It's what happened to me. It's also what happened to Nico B. The door is also split into 2 parts. One part requiring Tita and the second one requiring both Agate and Tita. The door starts off with a sniper scope view of Tita on the escalators at Sai's Central Factory. 2 masked figures descend to confront her. The figures then take off their masks to reveal Tita's parents, Dan and Erica. Her parents hug her and tell her how much they missed her after being away from LaBelle for so long. Erica asks about meeting Agate, seemingly already annoyed for no good reason. For some reason there's this idea floating around that the 2 are dating, which they clearly are not. Erica then remarks that they've created 2 flying car prototypes, and then Professor Russell and Erica begin bickering and arguing with each other about the practicality of the cars versus airships. They then start to physically fight each other, punching each other back and forth before being dragged apart by Dan and Tita. The 2 then go to get coffee and immediately argue about how it's made, and then Erica gets mad at Russell for not getting an autograph from Julia Schwartz on the Arcee, and then they start fighting again. And then Tita says she's glad the 2 are fighting because it makes the place feel like home. After dinner, Tita's mum begins showing off her blueprints. Tita sneaks over a few times and gets told every single time to leave. They then remark that Ouroboros is very much ahead in the technology race compared to anyone else in LaBelle and the entirety of Zemuria, which is why they came back. The next day, Tita heads to the factory to find out what her granddad and mother were working on. It turns out that the 2 were looking at data for Patamata to try and reconstruct an archaism for Tita that is capable of rivaling it. Tita gets a bit upset, understandably, because she doesn't want to create a machine to hurt Ren. However, Tita asks to help eventually in any way she can, at least with paperwork. She goes to the church to hand over some paperwork to Murdoch, and then some stuff happens that isn't too important. I kind of fell asleep while watching the store. Tita then asks to be part of the Orbital Gears development as well. She wants some way to be like Estelle and to connect with Ren. Tita then gets upset because Erica's plan was essentially to neutralize and like slime Ren out. Tita then runs out, and Erica tells Russell that she doesn't want Tita to shoulder the burden of making a weapon at her age. Which is understandable, probably like the only good thing Erica's ever done in her entire life. Tita then goes to see Dan in the basement, who gives her advice on the Orbital Gear and the dangers of creating it. It's cool to see how Tita is affected by Estelle's actions and is trying to move on and follow in Estelle's footsteps, to always be positive, to always look past someone and see the good in them. Erica then follows Tita down and asks about her convictions regarding Ren, at which point she allows her to participate. They begin working on the project together. After 2 weeks, they finish. There's this big time slot moment as soon as Erica hears that Agate is coming on Friday. The same day they plan to test this weapon. All of a sudden, she comes up with the brilliant idea to sacrifice Agate as a way of testing the Orbital Gear. This isn't even like me being funny. She literally says she's going to sacrifice Agate and kill this guy. This woman then crushes a box with her bare hands because she hates this man so much. Part 2. Later on, you can head to the door again alongside Agate to begin part 2 of this door. God knows why this door got a part 2 out of all doors. All moon doors. We could have got a part 2 for like any of the other doors or something more interesting, or even another moon door, but we got this shit. Later on, you can head to the door again alongside Agate to begin part 2. Agate arrives on a trip from Bose. He mentions having to visit once a month, and as soon as he steps off the airship, he feels a cold shiver run down his spine, like he's in imminent danger. At the same time, Tita's family is discussing the test, with Erica planning how to best take Agate down, brooding over it gleefully, while her husband Dan does absolutely nothing to temper this at all. Tita then tries to defend Agate, but just makes her parents even more worried. She then gets kicked out by Professor Russell again. In town, Tita tries to chase after her mum, while at the same time Agate enters the Bracer Guild to check for additional work. As soon as he steps in, he draws his sword, sensing that he's in mortal danger. Apparently, Erica knows exactly who Agate is before he even introduces himself. She is so furious, openly saying she wants to see Agate fail. Meanwhile, Tita enters the guild to find Erica and Agate arguing. Kilika fills Agate in on the details about her family and the work. It turns out she really did get a request put in through the Bracer Guild with Agate's name on it to test this machine that would knowingly kill him. Agate decides to investigate what the request actually entails by visiting the factory before formally accepting it. We get to walk around, talk to some NPCs, some of whom are even involved in fixing the RC at the end of Trails in the Sky SC. Up on the roof, Agate finds Dan. Dan reflects on Tita's upbringing and on her working on a weapon like this, talking about how Tita wants to work on the project to connect with Ren. Dan gives him the key to the basement where the family begins testing the weapon together. They start with a weird dance that makes Erica go like Kaioken, and then begin the procedure putting the quartz on Agate and then testing him. The first test is a race, which Agate loses. The second test is to place each can on the correct colour tile, which Agate wins, and then they completely ignore this. The final test is a mock battle between the two. This battle is fairly easy, as long as you manage your CP correctly. When blinded, just check your inventory to get Curia Bombs. Agate ends up winning, much to Erica's fury. She immediately starts arguing, claiming that he cheated by using some secret invisible power or something. What's crazy is that there's this huge lore drop where Dan says that he knows the Cassius Bright. He says he wants a one-on-one fight with Agate and reveals that he knows a lot about him. All of a sudden, Tita's gear begins malfunctioning, and she can't leave the Orbital gear anymore. We enter a battle against the malfunctioning gear. I didn't have too much trouble with this either, it was honestly pretty easy. At the end of the fight, Agate leaps in and grabs Tita, taking the blow from the malfunctioning machine to protect her. Dan then jumps in to save Tita and destroys the machine. This is the end of Agate, an unexpected death, but he died for the people he loved and cared for. Tita gives this huge speech and begins crying, only for Agate to still be wide awake and not even knocked out because he's my goat. Dan turns around and almost forcefully invites Agate to eat at their place. And then when Agate arrives, he gets hit by a bunch of Looney Tunes style traps as he tries to enter, some of which I don't even understand how they would fit inside this house. This is so trash. I hate this door so much. This goes in the trash tier. This is easily my worst door. I would rather they replace this door with literally anything else. It's so... nothing happens lore-wise that is relevant. Nothing interesting happens. It is literally just like them flaming Agate for no good reason. I think Beblanc is genuinely one of the stupidest characters in Trails, and I don't even care about this door. In Trails SC, Beblanc has a spell called Become Big and Become Little, where he makes a character fat or tiny. It's so funny. I saw Estelle become fat and I couldn't stop laughing for a good 5 minutes. At least this door gives some insight into Beblanc's actions of past, but not nearly in depth enough for me to really care. This character is so annoying and funny, and I love to hate it, but this is still a D tier door. Sun Door 4, the Casino / Gambler Jack. I'm terrible at poker and card games, though I'm great at Mahjong. Find me on Mahjong Soul. These minigames didn't really speak to me, but I totally get why some people might like them. I'm also not a big fan of the book Gambler Jack. I like Carnelia a lot more. But I love that they incorporated the book series into the doors. It's a very Trails thing to do. The door begins in the Calvard Republic's Eastern Quarter. It's a seedy place, and there's 2 gamblers of exceptional skill, both Jack and Hale. The first minigame starts off with Hale playing a hand against a player in blackjack. If you beat Hale, she agrees to go get Jack from the back, and then Jack falls through the floor, which is crazy. I don't even know how that happens. In this game, we play poker with unconventional rules. In this version, there are 3 table cards in the center that both players include in their hands. This allows players to create much bigger numbers, giving us both bigger opportunities to create bigger hands. Upon beating Jack, they decide to welcome us back anytime, saying that Jack wasn't even using his full power, and that's the end of the door. I didn't like this door that much. I don't like the poker minigame in Trails. I much rather prefer Blade. I love Blade. You should listen to Blade.
I had that lightning strike me. I'm scared of lightning.
D tier. Sun Door 2, Legendary Angler Estelle. I don't like the fishing in the Sky Trilogy, but this door was kind of funny, I guess. The Trails fishing lore goes so ridiculously hard sometimes. In this door, Estelle is consecutively challenged by different anglers, each one trying to get a one-up on her to claim the top spot at the Anglers Guild. I'm not a big fan of the minigame personally, but I know there might be fans out there, maybe like 1 or 2 of you. I won't lie, I didn't finish this door on my first playthrough. I went back to it later and I finished it off. The door starts with Estelle looking to take a break from her work by fishing at the Kingfisher Inn. The first opponent she faces is Lloyd, who challenges her to a fishing battle. Each round involves picking a rod and then the bait, and then going through the Trails fishing minigame, which, to be honest, the Sky fishing is probably the worst in the series. When I did this minigame, I literally just followed the guide on GameFAQs. After beating the minigame, Lloyd gives Estelle a silver lure. In Chapter 2, Estelle is taking on a mission to eliminate a wanted monster for the guild in the sewers of Grand Cell City. But strangely enough, she finds a young noblewoman seeking to challenge her. Nosh, I think that's how you say her name, is the next challenger and expects us to do 10 rounds. Listen lad. At the end, Estelle offers to take Norsh back to the city, and Norsh gives Estelle a golden rod in return for winning. Chapter 3. The final opponent is none other than Mr. Fisher. Estelle is tracked down by Mr. Fisher, who gets off his boat by the Gull Seaside Way as Estelle is walking down it. This is insane. Fisher wastes no time and challenges Estelle to a 15 round duel. At the end, if you win, Fisher gives Estelle a rainbow-coloured fishing line and then pronounces her the new leader of the Fisherman's Guild. This is much to Estelle's dismay because this is too much responsibility for her to take on. Eventually she's able to turn down Fisher, and so Estelle earns the nickname Supreme Fisher, and tales of her exploits spread everywhere around Zemuria. To me personally, I would give this door a high D tier. I love fishing. I think fishing is so funny. I love the Trails fishing lore, but this left a lot to be desired, both in terms of the fishing minigame and in terms of the Trails fishing lore. Fortunately, the Trails fishing lore does get better in the games to come. Star Door 7, the Epstein Foundation. This door is about the Epstein Foundation and the founding of it. I feel so sorry for the writer, the Kiseki writer who named the foundation the Epstein Foundation. That is now a core part of the series, and an integral part of it is that it's called the Epstein Foundation. It's so sad, it is so funny. It's interesting lore-wise, but I don't hold that much personal interest in it. To me, it's a low C tier. There isn't much analysis that I can do on it, because otherwise I'd just be reading what's off the slides. However, I do like the idea that each scientist upholds a different belief or ideal from one another. Star Door 9 requires 50k mirror to enter, which is fitting for a door about the merchant city of Bose. The door focuses on Mayor Maybelle and Leela. Mayor Maybelle is overwhelmed with work and is trying to meet with Leela, who's been pretty distant lately. She then sees Leela meeting with a man. She concludes that maybe Leela's dating someone and that's why she's been so distant. The next day, Maybelle contracts Annalise to do a background check on Leela. Annalise then tracks Leela down to find out who she's actually dating and whether he's a good and honest man. The first testimony is from Platina, who recalls them talking and have a conversation at a table. The second is from Mina and Harry. They tell her the man escorted Leela home. Then Mina starts going off at Harry and being mean to him, and it makes me sad whenever Mina's mean to Harry. The third piece of testimony comes from Trino and Modena, who say they were looking for souvenirs together at the market. A few days later at the mansion, Annalise reports back to Maybelle, revealing that Maybelle actually knows the person. It's Leonard, who owns the Kingfisher Inn. Maybelle says she's perfectly happy with the choice, but is a bit sad that Leela's moving on and growing up. All of a sudden there's a knock on the door and Leela comes in, bringing up the Kingfisher Inn and announcing that they're already planning on getting married. But it turns out that Maybelle was completely mistaken about this and they weren't going to try and get married. Leela was just trying to organise time off for Mayor Maybelle since she's been working so hard. This story is pretty funny. I like the twist at the end, but I don't find it particularly story relevant. In fact, I kind of forgot that this story existed. It wasn't so bad that I hated it, nor so good that I remembered it. It's just kind of mid. Two of my favourite NPCs are in it though, and it has more Annalise content, which is always welcome. To me, this is a C tier. This story is about Julia finally taking her day off on orders from Queen Alicia, and she has absolutely no idea what to do with herself. Julia initially tries to meet Chloe, and they both have so many duties to take care of, such as adult life. Julia exits the castle and is immediately met by a group of fangirls all trying to see her. She has to run back inside as the guards can't hold on to all of them. Apparently this is because the LaBelle News ran a special feature on Julia's actions aboard the LaBelle Ark, with a huge section dedicated to her. This section is even referenced in Moondor 1. Julia then thinks of escaping the castle by dressing like a nun, just like how she did in Trails in the Sky FC. This is a cool throwback. But she immediately runs into Mula Vander, who recognizes her straight away. Vander teases Julia and they end up talking, when all of a sudden the fangirls come back and Julia has to hide again. Vander agrees to help and they run off together. They meet at the park benches where Weisman once revealed himself. She laments feeling useless, unable to help at all, unworthy of the articles praising her or the promotion she'll be receiving. She admits that she looks up to Mula Vander and his ability to look after Olivier. Vander tells her that he had no choice but to serve him. His family has traditionally been made to protect the prince. He and Olivier are childhood friends, and he's been tasked with protecting Olivier his whole life. Vander wishes he could have a normal life and envies Julia's free will. He has no motivation outside of serving Olivier, not by choice at least. The two head to the martial arts arena for a friendly duel. If you beat the door, which I didn't, Julia and Mula talk about their responsibilities and what they each want from life. Julia chooses to accept her promotion and to protect Chloe and Alicia with everything she has. She runs off to meet Chloe, and Chloe tells her how much she admires Julia, how Julia looked after her and served as a role model. Julia then expresses her wish to be Chloe's retainer for life, to which Chloe agrees. They eat food together, and that's the end. I didn't care about this one that much, I'm giving it a C. If you like Julia, you'll probably like it, but I'll be real though, I forgot Julia existed and I only really remember Vander. But I still appreciate the insight into Julia that we got. However, I would have much rather have preferred to see her life as a student with Kano, which they previously talked about in Trails in the Sky SC. Star Door 10, Gordius Class Experiment Report. This door is a report from the 13 factories about the creation and specifications of the Archaism Patamato. By itself, I view this as a detail at best. It isn't really too interesting, and I was a bit let down because I believed that this would be Ren's door, giving us insight into her past. When I reach that door, I will talk about it more, but I like how it shows that controlling these archaisms isn't as easy as people think. It's actually very difficult, and for whatever reason, Ren was able to do it, presumably because she had very good mental fortitude. It's great foreshadowing for another door, but by itself, I would give it C tier. Sun Door 5, Campanella's quiz game. The best part about this door is seeing Campanella in drag. Oh my god. This shit was so hard. This was so tough. This was so tough. This was so tough. This minigame involves answering questions given by Campanella. When playing this, I found normal, hard and brutal not too bad, but there were a few questions on Maniac that gave me a hard time. It gives good items and was actually fairly fun. I also learned a lot of lore I hadn't paid attention to through it as well. To me, this is a low B tier, just because it's a Sun Door, but the quiz was really fun. Sun Door 3, The Arena. The Arena is a minigame where you fight a series of difficult boss fights, each one getting harder and harder. There are 3 stages: normal, hard, and nightmare. I was playing this on the hard difficulty, and I swear I could not finish the final fight. It is so difficult. They make you fight Louvet and Cassius at the same time. That is downright evil. The fights here are so fun though, and the splash screen for this is so fire. I'm a huge fan of Fist of the North Star, and this arena splash screen just spoke to me on a deep level. To me, this is low B tier. Again, it's a Sun Door, so I'm gonna rank it pretty low, but I still likes it a lot. Star Door 6 is trading agate style. In this door, the 3 gang members from Ruan, Dean, Rice, and Rocco, I think that's how you say it, take their final test to become junior bracers after Estelle told them they should train seriously. The test is administered by none other than Agate Krosner. The test takes place in Mistwald, which is crazy since Estelle and Joshua had their test in like that easy sewer and they had a place to heal. Going off by memory, I didn't find this door that memorable. I'm not a big fan of the area it takes place in, nor of the gang members it revolves around. It's funny to finally have a chance to play as them after fighting against them in FC, and the story is pretty heartwarming. I can definitely see people enjoying this, but this really isn't for me at all, and I don't think there's a need for me to go super in depth about it, especially when the 3 gang members haven't been brought up in the story as of right now again, as far as I know. This door is B tier for me. There are a number of force encounters, and it was pretty fun to go through the dungeon though. This door requires Joshua and Chloe to begin, and begins with a newspaper entry about the aftermath of the Leberlark falling. Queen Alicia is at the castle giving a speech to all of the heroes involved in saving Leberl. We see cameos from lots of characters we previously met, Dunnan, the maids, Josette. It's a pretty nice send-off to the cast. Josette and Estelle begin arguing at the table, and we get a chance to walk around and catch cutscenes with all the characters eating and talking about their future plans. My favourite cutscene here is the moment between Estelle and Josette, where they both tell Joshua to shut up in unison. At the end of the door, Chloe approaches Joshua to talk about her duties as a princess. She leads Joshua to the balcony whilst Estelle and Josette have a food eating competition. At the balcony, Chloe exclaims that she loves Joshua, but Joshua doesn't return her feelings. She handles this like a champ, honestly. Joshua also remarks on his future, and then Estelle shows up, shocked to find Chloe alone with Joshua in such a place. At the end, there's a massive fireworks display. In this store, I won't lie, Chloe acts like a bit of a cuck. She presents a banquet to the heroes who helped defend La Belle from Ouroboros and the Empire, and it's nice to walk around and see all the cast members interacting with one another. It's even more hilarious to see Josette and Estelle squabble. Not much of note happens, but it's nice to see Chloe grow. I initially completely wrote her off because of this door, but her actual door is really good. I would give this a solid B tier. Journey's End is a door that makes much more sense after playing Zero and Azure, and is set up to show us how Kilika ends up working for the Calvardian government and getting to Crossbell. Zin and Kilika go to visit a spring, and they reminisce on the events they've just undergone. Ambassador Cochrane? I don't think she even shows up past this game. Offers Kilika a role as part of the intelligence department. After some thought, Kilika agrees to join as a way of moving forward with her life, choosing to continue training and studying her father's fighting style rather than working a dead-end job as a bracer receptionist in La Belle. This was good. I wish it would allude more to the events that would take place in the Crossbell arc. I also think that it's good that they don't waste a character like Kilika after showing us how much potential she has. Looking at you, Kurt. Stardoor 5, Swordsmanship. Annalise takes a break from her training and whilst waiting at the Bracer Guild converses with Legrand about a letter she received from her grandfather, Yun Ka-Fai. Yun Ka-Fai is the same guy that taught Cassius, Arios, and Reen. And this is this girl's grandfather. This is such a strange reveal, but I find it really funny. I would never have expected Annalise to have descended from one of the strongest people in Zemuria. I really like how they're leaning into this aspect so much in Trails in the Sky Seconds, the remake to SC, by changing her fighting style and her animations completely. It's one of the reasons I want to play this game so badly. The game hasn't come out yet, but please tell me that we get playable Annalise as a party member. The letter asks her to go and visit the Cassius Bright. The letter is about how Yun Ka-Fai cannot understand and deeply regrets the fact that his best student, Cassius, chose to lay down his sword. So he asks Annalise to speak with him about it. When Annalise arrives, Cassius tells her he cannot answer her questions, as he does not know how to answer them himself. He takes her outside and makes Annalise and Richard duel. If Annalise wins, you get the best weapon in the game, Jinu, which can be upgraded in one of the later doors. Upon beating Richard, she notes that she finally understands that the most important thing is the reason why one takes up their sword. Again, I'm going to be real, there is no way that Annalise beat Richard. This is like a hydrogen bomb versus a coughing baby situation. How could Annalise beat this guy who's like the reincarnation of Musashi from Vagabond? Vagabond is fire, by the way, and you should read it. I actually like this store a lot, but the fight is incredibly difficult, especially on harder difficulties. I like seeing Annalise again, and any content with Richard, Cassius or Annalise is always something I'm going to enjoy. I also love the lore drop about Yun Ka-Fai, and this guy is in the latest Trails game, as of this moment, which I think is Trails Beyond the Horizon. I really hope we get to see more Annalise content, and I can't wait to get to Trails Beyond the Horizon so I can see Yun Ka-Fai for myself. Annalise is so funny. This is, to me, this is at the top of B tier. This door involves a minigame of shooting down a desperate Gilbert using the Capua family airship. Looking back in hindsight, I completely forgot that the beginning of this door is part of a Sun door because it's so good. I thought it was part of a Star door or something. This ranking may seem a bit out of place, but I love the beginning of this door so much. The Capua family is running a new delivery service after being pardoned. Don attempts to surprise Josette by handing her a letter from Joshua, but finds that he's misplaced it. This annoys Josette greatly, and she begins berating her brother for losing such an important letter. In this tantrum, she also berates him for the loss of their family fortune. I never realised how soft Don was. He is the older brother and bears the burden of his entire family upon himself. When it said the Sky Bandits were rich, I had no idea how rich and well off they were, until this CG showed up. This really opened my eyes to how much the Capuas lost. They really lost anything, they really were a noble family that just got unlucky. Afterwards, Gilbert begins attacking the Capua bandits of all people to show off his Gilbert copter, much to the annoyance of his fellow Jaegers. You get to play this mini game to shoot down Gilbert, and it's pretty fun, I won't lie. I really liked it, even though a lot of people hated it. At the end of the door, Gilbert crashes right into the place where we first meet him at the start of Trails 3rd. Josette apologizes, and the group all reconciles. To me, I love this door. I wish this door was a star door or something. Even though I like the minigame, I would rather much hear about the lore, about the Capua Bandits more. To me, this is a low A tier. Despite the story being really good, it's let down because it's a sun door, and the sun doors are usually pretty miss. Star Door 13 is similar in format to the Epstein Foundation, but I really love this door despite it being very simple to read. This door is so important lore-wise because it gives us an understanding of what was going through Cassius Bright's mind when he left Estelle and Trails in the Sky FC. This document is a report from the perspective of both the Empire and Bracer Guilds, and it talks about the attacks on the Bracer Guilds in the Empire by Ouroboros via the Jaeger group Jester. Did that make sense? I hope it did. I checked who Jester was on the wiki, and apparently this is a Jaeger group in Akatsuki, which I'm never playing. The head of Jester ends up getting killed in prison by someone unknown, so this is another potential man. But the costumes and masks they have would scare the life out of me. They remind me of like Killer Clowns in 2016. The documents portray Cassius as this massive threat who is not someone to be taken lightly. He is revered, admired and feared across all of Zemuria. This door also gives us insight into the events that will be taking place in Cold Steel and further encapsulates just how cunning George Weissman is, being able to distract both the Empire and LeBeau simultaneously so he can conduct his plans. After the door, Cassius is raised to the highest threat level possible. The door also shows how clever and strong Cassius is, even outsmarting the Jaegers when outnumbered. This is an easy A tier for me. Cassius is my GOAT. In this door, Richard receives a letter from a soldier who was served under him during the coup. Richard and Canone have relocated to Beauce and have now started an intelligence office. Today, they are serving Murano and helping with her business. Murano asks Richard to research foreign markets, one of them being Orid State, which foreshadows why Murano moves to Crossbell in Zero. As the day ends, Richard reflects on trying to turn over a new leaf and become a civilian. Strangely enough though, he receives a letter and runs outside into the rain. The letter told him to head to the landing port, but it was enclosed in such a way that suggested that it was sent by the intelligence corps from the first Trails game. At the landing port, a man meets him, a soldier who asks him a number of questions. The primary one being, why did Richard leave the army? Richard tries to explain his reasoning. Despite not harbouring any deep-seated resentment about Richard's change of heart, the soldier asks him what happened to his patriotism. He begs him to go back to the army, to the military. Everyone wants him to come back, Cassius and Morgan included, but Richard can't bring himself to rejoin after sinning like he did in Trails in the Sky FC. Richard's reasoning here is actually really interesting. He's trying to point out that he is helping his country by setting up an intelligence division, one that is needed thoroughly, one that is independent from the military, that views all nations with equal objectivity. The sender calls him a coward and walks away. Canone had followed Richard out. Seeing all the problems that he's caused, she tries to properly reassure him. When getting back, Richard receives an encrypted call to investigate an Jaeger corps in Erebonia, known as Red Constellation, subtle foreshadowing to the next few games. Richard says he will head there personally, and remarks on what the soldier said to him. Richard then leaves to find out what Red Constellation is up to. This is great foreshadowing for the next game, A tier. I've heard theories that the soldier wasn't real, that it was all in Richard's head, and that he cannot forgive himself. This door is A tier for me. It sets up perfectly for the information war about to take place in the Crossbell arc, and it also foreshadows a bunch of the events in the Crossbell arc so well. I'm pretty sure that the phone call he gets is from the mole he has in the Crossbell arc about Red Constellation, which I really like. Door 2 is a letter addressed to an important figure in the church by Rhys Argent. It details the effects of the Salt Pail, a mysterious incident that caused the societal collapse of Northumbria. The most interesting part for me is that it gives more insight into George Weissman. The report states that Weissman was orphaned by the Salt Pail and managed to reach the position of a bishop in the Congregation for the Sacraments. This is an incredibly high position, and one can only wonder how he could have possibly been expelled after reaching such heights. Initially when I saw this, I found it unnerving and creepy. The dimly lit room and the papers is accompanied by the foreboding music, and it really sets the atmosphere. I know the Salt Pail is important to the larger trail story, and does come back eventually, in Cold Steel I believe, but I haven't played Cold Steel so I can't say anymore. For me, this is a solid A tier. Interesting and good for what it is, but it doesn't really provide much more, but I appreciate the in-depth lore and characterization it gives. Star Door 14, Phantasmal Blaze. Phantasmal Blaze is a weird door for me. I want you to know that I've only played up to Cold Steel 1 before stopping. I'm trying to finish Cold Steel 1 right now, but life keeps getting in the way. Not that it matters, since this series is supposed to end in 2031 I think, or there's an announcement in 2031. I hope I'm still alive to play it by then. I've also had a lot of Cold Steel spoiled for me, which kind of ruins the incentive to play it. I've heard people say that this game foreshadows a lot of Cold Steel. I couldn't tell you honestly. This door follows Ouroboros and their future after the fall of the Loberlock. Campanella goes to meet the Anguis of Ouroboros, their highest ranking members. Campanella is a strange guy. He's an enforcer, but he could clearly be an Anguis. He's on par with them, and he's probably stronger and even more clever, but he chooses not to be. In this store, Campanella discusses the fall of George Weissman with the Anguises, whose identities cannot be seen. More importantly, the Grand Master is present, and she seems to mourn him more significantly than any of the other cartoonishly evil characters around her. Campanella gives the Aureole to the Grand Master, who can use it to conduct her plans. At the very end, Campanella turns around, looks at the camera, and acknowledges the player. This freaked me the fuck out when I first played it. This store is cool, and I like the foreshadowing, but it didn't give me an emotional kick to it. It probably hits harder when you finish Cold Steel 4. For me, this is a S tier, a low S tier. I like it a lot, but I still don't understand why it's so important. Maybe when I finish Cold Steel, it'll be at the top. Moondoor 5 is by far one of the strangest doors in this game. Before playing it, my mate told me, "Bro, you will not believe what's behind this door. Bro, this door is so crazy. This is like one of the best doors in the game. This is crazy." The story is about the orphans at Mercia Orphanage. They want to get a present for the matron of the orphanage and are trying to figure out what would best be perfect for her. The story is about the orphans at Mercia Orphanage. They want to get a present for the matron of the orphanage and are trying to figure out what would be perfect for her. The kids all band together to decide. Mary takes on the burden as the oldest of the orphans, trying to help out everyone wherever she can. When Mary gets outside, she runs into Clem alongside the rest of the kids. Clem tells them a story where he was in Rouen and heard about a happiness stone from a shop owner. A stone created by the goddess that gives anyone who finds it happiness. It can only be found in the most far north, snowy regions. O'Neill, the shopkeeper, gives this big story about how he used to be a great explorer and found a happiness stone himself whilst exploring. The kids then agree to try and find a happiness stone by heading to the highest points in the area, the Crone Mountains, which, if you know from gameplay, is actually a really dangerous, full of high monsters area, and it's really scary. Clem runs off with the other kids. However, Mary doesn't buy this story for 1 second. She thinks the whole thing is obviously fake. Mary and Polly instead decide to go to the shore to look for shells and cool stones to give to the matron as a present. One cool detail is that you can find a chest that Estelle and Joshua had previously looted. Mary and Polly can't find any good shells and then eventually start considering finding the happiness stone anyway. Out of the corner of their eye they find a gold chain sitting on a boat, but still decide that the chain isn't good enough. Grant is walking across the road and they start talking to him. He announces that there's a bazaar at the local village. They get the bright idea to go to the bazaar and find a present there. We get to play as the kids for a bit, and walking around as them is so funny. They walk in and decide to ask about the happiness stone, and to their surprise, Solomon the shopkeeper tells them about a bunch of gold rocks near the mountains. That was the confirmation the kids needed. The happiness stone might be real after all, and Mary decides to go to the Crone Mountains. Just for a little bit. On the way, Polly stops and gets distracted, and suddenly Mary loses her and is all alone. She walks for ages and finds herself completely lost in a completely weird and bizarre place. She sees a monster and hides. Rushing forward to try and find Polly, she trips and falls and starts crying as any lost kid would, all alone in the forest, with not a soul to save her. Then I got hit with the biggest jump scare I've seen in my entire life. This weird dragon appears and begins talking to Mary about the glorious Oriole, guiding her through the forest. I played this door with my friend at the same time, and we saw this dragon, and we could not stop laughing. It was so funny. What's crazy is you actually fight this dragon in the arena. And in the arena, it's given the name Baby Ragnar. Whether that's meant to be taken literally or not, I don't know. But it's a baby dragon. Initially, the dragon is scared of Mary because he thinks that she's a monster, but continues walking with her, saying, "Yuppers, I'm only 320 years old." The way this dragon talks is so funny. Sunflowers are yummylicious too. Mary gives one of her sandwiches to Ragnar and throws it into his mouth, How to Train Your Dragon style. They then play games together. When it gets too cold, Mary goes to fetch some firewood to start a fire. The monster follows round Mary and she hugs it. She says that the smell is somehow familiar. The baby dragon breathes fire and starts the fire that way. They sleep together with Mary lying on the dragon's chest. However, when Mary wakes up, she's all alone and the monster is nowhere to be seen. Mary finally decides to go home and heads back the way she came. On the way back, she comes across a rickety bridge, and as she walks across, she's pushed off by the wind and she flies off. Her last words are, "Matron, I'm sorry." All of a sudden, a ball of light appears, and the baby dragon flies Mary to safety. When Mary wakes up, she's lying by the side of the road with Polly and Grant. The rest of the kids rush over and reprimand Mary for running off by herself, but it turns out they all planned to go to pick up gifts from the bazaar for the matron without telling Mary, making sure she didn't have to do any work. It's a really touching scene. When Mary looks down, she finds a glowing stone, what can only be assumed to be the happiness stone. They then fit the stone in a pendant, and then they fit the pendant from the chain they found earlier. We are then treated to this really touching photo of Grant and the kids celebrating the matron's birthday. This door to me is incredibly strange, and I've seen a number of theories circulate online about why this door even exists. Some say that the dragon was actually the matron, that it was all a dream. Apparently this door even links into the current Trails timeline, and it's a really important door. It's theorized that Mary was somehow able to time travel across dimensions, letting her meet baby Ragnar before he grew up. I don't understand it myself, because at this moment in time, I'm still playing Cold Steel 1, and I think this is related to Cold Steel 4 and Trails Beyond the Horizon, but I don't know yet. Moondoor 4 requires both Estelle and Joshua to enter. It begins with Weisman talking to Joshua. Estelle and Joshua are both children, and this is the first day Estelle has known Joshua. She takes care of him, forcefully, as Joshua tries to recover. He spends his days in bed waiting for Ouroboros to come find him. He then sits by a tree as Estelle continues to pester him to play and or to rest. Joshua refuses, stating that he's going to leave. So to cheer him up, Estelle decides to bring him a bug she caught, roly-polies. He says he doesn't want a bug, so Estelle decides to bring a dragonfly, and then a lizard. But much to her dismay, Joshua still doesn't want any of them. Estelle gets mad and asks, what kind of bugs does Joshua actually want? He says he wants no bugs. So naturally, Estelle decides that Joshua needs an amazing bug, something that'll make him smile. She brings back what she declares a human moth because it has a human face on it, which much to Joshua's surprise actually does. She then brings back a swarm of bugs and drags Joshua underwater with her to escape them. Estelle tries to bring Joshua fishing, to which he says no. She fishes anyway and makes fun of her dad, to which I find kind of funny, saying that he isn't working and is doing nothing, seemingly oblivious to her dad's true identity as the strongest bracer on the continent. The second week passes and Estelle's friends come to her house because they haven't seen her in so long. Her friends Tio and Alyssa find Joshua, who is still waiting in exactly the same spot. Estelle comes back with a new bug and proclaims to her friends that Joshua is actually her little brother. This shocks everyone, including Joshua, and they try to explain to her that you don't just get like little brothers like that. Joshua tries to walk off, but Estelle then beats him up and then suplexes him and flows him around. It's actually like scary how strong this girl is. That night, Joshua tries to escape, only for Cassius to meet him outside and offer him a bed. Cassius tells Joshua to accept Estelle's love. She is someone that knows what she wants and knows what she has to do. She understands the true nature of all things, in complete contrast to Joshua. After several weeks, Joshua is able to walk again, and soon had to make the fateful choice whether to stay or to leave. They go to Tio's farm to help out with vegetables, and Joshua is stuck looking after 2 babies, which look so funny and they look so cute. As he stands there, Joshua has an existential crisis about who he is, not knowing who he was or where he was supposed to go. Estelle shows Joshua this huge carrot she has, and after seeing that she scraped her knee, he tends to her wounds. It's a miracle she hasn't caught tetanus yet, he says. The babies then start crying, and in order to comfort them, Joshua takes out his harmonica and begins playing the Whereabouts of Light. Joshua decides he's happy here, but needs to leave before he destroys everything around him, effectively self-sabotaging himself. Estelle is still trying to cheer up Joshua with bugs and decides that today she is going to get the bug of legends by creating a syrup that would attract bugs. I like that when she goes to meet Tio, she jumps over the river instead of using the bridge. It really adds to Estelle's character as being this really stupid kid. On the way back, Estelle laments about her mother. Looking at the clock tower, she thinks about her. When Estelle goes to the forest, she's ambushed by monsters, and Joshua, who is just about to leave, suddenly sets down his letter of thanks to Cassius, runs over and saves her. After reprimanding her, all she can show him is a bug that makes Joshua smile. The game then cuts to Estelle and Joshua leaving the town of Roll-Up by airship to visit other countries as bracers. The entire town sees them off as they head to Frostbelt. I really like this store. This store is an S tier. Any content between Estelle and Joshua is always so good, and it's awesome that we get to see more about Joshua more in depth, and we get to learn about what Estelle was like when she was a kid and what Joshua was like when he was a kid. The whole thing about Estelle bringing bugs to Joshua is so hilarious to me, and seeing all of her friends as kids was really cool to me. This is an easy S tier for me. Holy Peak. Stardoor 8 is the place where Trails truly began as a franchise, and I mean it really began. This store is a declaration from Falcom, riding the success of Trails FC and SC, that the world of Kiseki is so much greater than just the region of LeBeau. The entirety of Zemuria is waiting to be explored. The 2 people required to use this store are Mueller Vander and Olivier. This store starts with Olivier, Mueller and Ambassador Crano sitting together after the events that took place in LeBeau in the last game. Olivier has become quite popular after resolving the conflicts between LeBeau and the Empire. Olivier discusses his life and his experiences as an excommunicated prince. We get introduced to another character we saw in another door, Secretary Lecter. In this door, he appears extremely different from Chloe's door. Lecter says that the Empire is trying to schedule a meeting for Olivier before leaving, then mentions that he's off on another job. Lecter is a member of the embassy and is part of the intelligence division. It becomes apparent that there's some infighting within the upper echelons of the Empire between Olivier and the Chancellor. Olivier then meets with Alicia, Claudia and Cassius to discuss Osborn's thwarted plan to invade LeBeau, reminding them that LeBeau must still be on guard. One interesting thing is that he mentions that the Empire used steam-powered tanks to combat the orbital shutdown, and that they may have a lot more steam-powered weaponry available. All of a sudden, Hilda arrives to announce a visitor at the castle. Unexpectedly, the visitor is none other than Gilead Osborn and his secretary Lecter. When asked why he was at the meeting, Osborn says that he stopped by to discuss an issue taking place in southern Erebonian. He pays his respects and apologises for situations like what happened in Hamel. It's clear to anyone with half a brain that this is all an act. simply plain diplomacy. Another interesting thing that Osborn laments is the fact that his forces, despite being so large, are bloated and constrained by bureaucracy. He wishes they were more flexible, like the guerrilla warfare Liberl is able to employ. Cassius then laments that Liberl lacks the intelligence capabilities that countries like the Empire possess. Olivier says he plans to leave to make a grand entrance at Heimdallr, the capital of Erebonia. Osborn says the same, leaving not long after Olivier. Osborn decides to ask Olivier to spend time with him to discuss his intentions. It's clear that something else is going on. In a private room, Osborn compliments Olivier, saying that he's become so resilient. Olivier then kicks back, criticising Osborn's political annexation of so many countries, especially during the 100 Days War. He lays into Osborn, saying that he forces smaller countries to give in to the Empire through proxy by means of Jaeger mercenaries. He asks why Osborn came to Liberl if he was so hated and had been assassinated before, but Osborn says that Lecter took all precautions to keep him safe. He then says he will be going to Crossbell to visit next. This is crazy since it's the last place Osborn would even want to go, given it's a hotbed for political violence and terrorist groups. Osborn calls Olivier out for using his newfound popularity to create a foothold within the Empire, presenting himself as a figure to be admired by the Erebonian people. Meanwhile, Lecter is on the balcony of Grancel Castle, where he meets Chloe in a more formal environment. Chloe asks how her childhood friend could turn into a man who works for someone as brutal as Osborn. He tries to joke, but Chloe says how upset everyone was when he left Genis Royal Academy, how upset Lucy, Jill, Hans and Leo all were. But Lecter just presents himself as someone else entirely. Lecter finally drops the act, talking to Claudia normally, and admitting that he carefully made himself slobby and as unkempt as possible at Genis to make himself look like an idiot, when in reality he was wise beyond his years. Meanwhile, Osborn says that he and Olivier both hate what Erebonia has become. The Empire's power is dwindling, slowly held together by duct tape. Despite controlling the majority of the Empire, about 70%, the remainder is owned by the nobility, the rich and powerful who control private armies for their own sakes. He's in the middle of a secret civil war. He asks Olivier to work for him, suggesting that with Olivier's power, presence and popular support, they can bring reform to the country, taking power back into the hands of the people. The noble faction, bloated with years of decadence, can be stopped. Olivier doesn't even answer. He asks one question: what connection do you have with Ouroboros? Osborn feigns ignorance, saying he simply wants to use every resource available at his disposal. Olivier then refuses. He hates the nobility too, but Osborn's methods are wicked and evil. He's trying to delude the Erebonians into believing that there's hope for a utopia and creating a revolution that destroys the nobility. But this is only the first stage of his reform. What happens after is unknown. Osborn gives his farewell. Lecter then leaves Chloe, discussing their future and what will become of the lives they now live after the Academy. As Osborn and Lecter board the ship, Olivier deduces that Lecter is a spy who's had roots set in Liberl for an extremely long time. Just before leaving, one of my favourite moments in any Trails game takes place. Olivier and Mueller pull up beside the civilian ship on the high-speed cruiser, the Orsay, before throwing a bouquet of roses and shooting it, causing it to explode in a vast shower of petals. A message is relayed from the Orsay. I give thanks to Aidios for the good fortune to have been able to meet you today. May your journey be filled with beautiful roses and her blessings. And of course, may the journey to your homes be a safe and pleasant one. Osborn then screams at Olivier, declaring war, laughing maniacally. This door is incredible. It's the Trails writers showing off their biggest villain in the series other than the Grandmaster for the first time, and what an entrance it is. This is easily S tier for me. It hits even harder after playing Azure and parts of Cold Steel, now knowing exactly what this was foreshadowing. Door 2. Client Scheherazade. I really like this door. This door gives us so much insight into both Scherer and Einar as characters, helping to understand the trials and tribulations that made them into who they are today. This moon door opens where the gag scene in Trails FC left off. Einar, Olivier and Scheherazade are drinking together. Einar and Scherer both reminisce on how they met, and we are transported to a smaller version of Grancel, one that is still currently growing from the Oral Revolution and still recovering from the 100 Days War. Here we play as a young Scheherazade working as a junior bracer. This door is really cute. It's awesome to walk around the city and see all the NPCs we meet later on, like Fisher opening up the fishing guild, or Anton and Ricky, whose eyes are filled with so much hope at being able to attend a prestigious school like St. Genis. We even get a small scene of Neil meeting Dorothy and hiring her as his photographer. Ina arrives at the Bracer Guild looking for someone to help her tour the city. Kurt pushes this onto Shera since she's available, but Shera doesn't want to help Ina, seeing Kurt only as a rich kid and viewing tour guiding as completely outside of what a bracer should be. Shera constantly passes crude remarks at Ina for being a stereotypical, naive rich kid, whilst Ina tries to remain strong and tour the city. It quickly becomes apparent that something is very wrong when Ina starts to hide from men in black suits who are hunting someone down. It turns out that the men in black suits are hunting Ina, as she is the last remaining obstacle between a relative and their inheritance. The only way Ina can formally inherit her inheritance is by signing papers at Grancel Castle. Unfortunately, her relative is essentially camping Grancel Castle, similar in a way to how one peeks around the corner in Siege, just waiting for Ina to appear so she couldn't claim it. I'd previously never seen Ina as a rich kid. I assumed that she was some minor character, and she doesn't come off as someone who's aloof, rich, whatever. She just comes across as a normal person. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Ina and Scheherazade escape through the sewers using Shera's skills from her days living in poverty. The smell inside brings back unpleasant memories of living in a slum. Inside the sewers, Shera recounts her trauma of growing up in poverty as an orphan, stealing from the rich and hoarding money for herself. All of this is shown with a harrowing image of child Shera bleeding after being mugged, as what she describes as punishment for her greed for stealing. This flashback alone elevates this moon door's impact enormously for me. Aside from Shera's trauma with Luciola, we are never given a backstory into Sheherazade's life before this. Knowing that she grew up in extreme poverty helps to recontextualize so many of her actions and so much of her skill set in a completely different light. The reason she wants to become a bracer is simply to have a stable job, so she's never in a similar situation again. She's constantly haunted by financial anxiety and the trauma of living in such extreme poverty, and holds a deep-seated grudge against those who never had to suffer as she did. The pair eventually escape the sewers and hide out in a derelict house for the night. There, Ina explains that she trusts no one and is unable to. With the amount of money she has, she's just scared all the time. Scared of others hurting her, taking advantage of her, killing her, just to take her money. She explains to Shera in relation to her grandfather's will, I was just scared. I'll never be able to forget what I saw that day, what I saw in the eyes of everyone who gathered to hear that will read. The horror I felt when I saw it, madness, insanity, cold, murderous light, emotions that no one can explain, that no one could put into words. It wasn't visible for long before they managed to push it back down below the surface and out of sight. But it was still there, because now I believe that's something that all of us possess naturally. Human beings are capable of limitless cruelty, every one of us, and that realization's left me terrified of us all. It's not that I don't trust bracers, it's just that I've been so scared. At this moment, it becomes apparent to Shera that just because Ina has had a life filled with money, that doesn't mean that her life has been easy. Multiple attempts on her life, constant fear, unable to eat out of the fear that her food was poisoned, always on the run. Ina had far more in common with her than she previously thought. Shera now understands that being a bracer isn't just a job, but a vacation and a way of life. It's everything that Kurt and Cassius Bright embody, helping the weak and others to protect peace and justice. Ina and Shera then make a last-ditch attempt to sign off the inheritance at Grancel Castle. Kurt and Gundolf show up to help and fight the goons in order to get Ina inside. As Shera's final part of the request, she signs as a witness that Ina has signed all the necessary paperwork. Ina then donates all of the inheritance money she receives to the Queen's Welfare Foundation to help others less fortunate. Shera and Ina then share a drink, and Ina signs up as a receptionist for the branch, marking the beginning of a wonderful friendship. I went in depth on this analysis because I loved it so much. I loved seeing Shera developed as a person and seeing her backstory in full. It adds so much to Shera's character in retrospect, why she joined the Bracer Guild and the circus, and even where she learned her skills in pickpocketing and lockpicking. Like, even when she played poker in Trails SC, how does she pull that trick off? It's obviously because she's had to learn, how to live street smart in extreme poverty. This is S tier. This is such a good door, and I wish there were more doors like this. Star Door 15, Paradise. If you're following this far, you probably already know what Star Door 15 is about. I don't really want to talk about the content of this door too much because I'm not mature enough to comment on such situations, and also because it makes me very upset and angry. When I first played this door, I wanted justice for Ren, and I wanted her to be happy. Ren is my favourite character in Trails, barring Estelle and Lloyd. I find it hard to add anything to what people haven't already said about Ren. Ren is an 11 to 12 year old girl in Trails in the Sky SC. She's a terrifyingly powerful enforcer, one who can rival people much older than her, further equipped with an incredibly strong archaism named Pater Mater. With her gothic dress and over-the-top weapons, she initially comes off to me as a repetitive trope, the incredibly powerful, small gothic child, similar to someone like Rachel Alucard from BlazBlue, or Emilia Scarlet from Touhou. As we learn more and more about Ren, it becomes apparent that, unlike those tropes, Ren isn't nearly as wise as Emilia or Rachel. In fact, she's very naive and has an extremely tragic past. To me, this door is perfect and the darkest part of the Trails series. I played through it with a friend watching it at the same time, and I was unbeknownst to what was beyond the door. This door is entirely optional and far away from all the others. It's at the very pit of hell, unlike most other doors within the game. Initially, I didn't believe there was another Ren door, having seen Star Door 10 previously. After Star Door 10, it becomes apparent that the only reason Ren was able to possibly control such an archaism like Pater Mater is simply because she had the will to keep moving forward with her life, even after enduring such hardships. This door completely recontextualizes Ren's actions in a way that we may have found annoying, frustrating, or stupid at first, but now find quite tragic and sad. Furthermore, it helps to recontextualize characters like Louvet and Joshua, showing us that even though they are the main antagonists of Trails in the Sky, they would never stoop to such lows, choosing to recruit her rather than abandon her. The end of this door, when Ren sits all alone after her final fight with the heroes, alone with Pater Mater, her only friend, under the rain, thinking about how Estelle tried to embrace her, is one of the most moving and powerful scenes in any Trails game. Immediately after she flew to Crossbell, I wanted to know why and who could do such a thing to Ren. Why did her parents abandon her and move on, whilst she longed to be part of a normal family? Unfortunately, this is outside the context of this piece. And whilst this cliffhanger was originally what drove me to play Trails from Zero, it haunted me. I've not played a game or seen a piece of media that treats something this serious with as much impact, respect, and gravity as it should have. The consequences of this door reach so far into the future, as they should. It's an accurate representation of the grief caused by abuse. This door is amazing. It is peak Trails, and it is my second favourite door in the game. S tier. The only reason it's not my favourite door is because the content of the door disgusts me and makes me feel quite ill. Her story arc continues in the future. I would like to talk about her full story arc in the future. Moondoor 3 is probably the longest door in this game. It concerns Chloe and Lecter at the Royal Academy. I'll try my best to summarise it because this is by far my favourite door in the game. It's a door that I think foreshadows the coming events of the Crossbell arc and the Erebonia arc, whilst giving a lot of structure to a character that I honestly did not care about that much before this game. It's also a story I think is very relatable and works on so many levels. There was so much of this door that I didn't understand until subsequent playthroughs, and I loved this door. The story begins with Chloe entering the Royal Genis Academy. A bit later, then her appears as a transfer student. As Chloe enters, we get our first view of Lecter in the school. Who the fuck is Lecter? We don't know who Lecter is at this point. Chloe enrolled to become a more independent person and to increase her confidence. It's clear that Chloe's a bit out of place, enrolling in May of all times when the school year is almost over, even introducing herself in a self-deprecating manner. When asked about her hobbies, Chloe says that she has none. Not only that, but the test for transfer students is significantly harder, which gets the other students talking. Soon, she's the talk of the whole school. When everyone goes home, Chloe stays behind to help Ms. Viola, the teacher, who asks that Chloe hands out printouts to all the social studies students. What's crazy about this is that there are so many characters in this academy that have incredibly strong relevance to the story in future installments that you wouldn't even think of. The first person I came across in this door is Roy. This is the same Roy that appears in Trails into Reverie and Trails from Daybreak. Everyone finds Chloe much too polite. As we walk around the school handing out printouts, we also meet two of my favourite characters. Anton and his sidekick Ricky are waiting for us. Anton regrets that he has to repeat his third year, scared that he's going to fail. On the way to the cafeteria, she runs into the student council who are all searching for Lecter. When I first played this, I thought that these characters were all super important because they all had portraits attached to them. Leo is the student council secretary. He reappears in Trails of Cold Steel as the author of the book, The Rhineford Group, Past to Present, never to appear again. Jill never reappears, neither does Hans, but these two characters are present for the first two Sky games, so it makes sense why they have portraits here, but Lucy is so strange to me. Lucy doesn't appear again until Trails of Cold Steel 4. I haven't even got to that game yet. I guess she was introduced with a portrait because in the next game, Trails from Zero, her aunt is actually Professor Sayland, another character who plays an extremely minor role in the Trails games. Moving on, the four are discussing where Lecter could have gone. Lecter is somehow the committee president despite being incredibly lazy and skipping meetings all the time. Jill then announced to her friend Hans that she's sharing a room with Chloe, to his shock. She then complains that Chloe barely talks. Meanwhile, Chloe continues to lament her luck at the academy, feeling low and trying to keep herself busy. She hears others gossiping about her in class. Outside, she runs into Lecter, who asks her what she thinks about the academy, noting that she doesn't really let loose or have fun at all. Lecter is a bit strange. He tells Chloe that she should slack off more and stop taking life so seriously. She can't understand why he's the student council president of all people, since he just seems to rage bait everyone all the time, which is kinda based, I can't lie. Jill and Hans still can't find Lecter and are still trying to force him to do paperwork. They run into Chloe outside and ask if she's seen him. She confirms she has. Apparently Lecter is a huge troublemaker. They even have a whole policy directed at finding him. Chloe tells them he's on the club schoolhouse roof, sleeping, which she knows about because of her pet bird Sieg. Jill and Hans climb up with a rope to catch him, but by the time they get there, he's already escaped somehow. The two decide to recruit Chloe to help them search for Lecter. The group searches for Lecter and finds him in one of the gym buildings laying down, reading a book called Kitty Talk for Dummies, one of my favourite books in the Trails game. He then says Nyago, Nyan, and Unyanan. I looked up what this means from the actual in-game book, and I had some trouble because it doesn't use the same dialect. I don't know if cats in Erebonia speak the same language as this, but I think it is. It's been a while. How have you been? I'm tired. You're absolutely right, I think. The translation isn't very good, I'm not going to lie. Whilst Jill beats Lecter up, Chloe reflects on trying to run away from everything, not understanding why she's there. She then joins the fencing club, the hobby her classmate had asked about previously that she was too scared to mention. She was also forced to help out with Hans and Jill from time to time in order to catch Lecter. A month later, study season and exams begin. After the exams, Leo asks for a meeting with Chloe as well. After the meeting, they run into Lecter, and Chloe is given a letter to deliver to the mayor of Rouen. Lecter casually drops that he knows Sieg, and then tries to rage bait Chloe again. Chloe heads to the mayor's office in town, but on the way sees Lecter walking into a casino. Students aren't legally allowed to gamble according to school rules. Inside, she finds Lecter on the machines. He, though genuinely, does not care about getting caught. Even though he could get kicked out, he just keeps gambling. Chloe then meets the mayor and Gilbert before his infamy. And Gilbert was part of the student council as well, which is crazy. When Chloe arrives back, she's informed that someone dragged Lecter away from the gambling machines, assuming it's Lucy. Walking back, Chloe stumbles across a young boy looking for a stone. The boy introduces himself as Clem. When arriving at his house, it becomes clear that Clem is an orphan, coincidentally from the same orphanage that Chloe was raised in. When arriving, the matron immediately recognizes Chloe, and Chloe breaks down in tears. Chloe knew that this orphanage was here, but she was avoiding it the entire time out of fear. The Mercia orphanage kids welcome Chloe, who was raised there despite being royalty. She stays, comforted by her childhood memories for hours at a time. When arriving back one time, Jill confronts Chloe, thinking that she might have been meeting a boy, but Chloe confesses that she's been going to see the matron. When Jill says how good Chloe must be, always visiting the matron, always visiting the poor orphans, Chloe gets really angry. For a bit, we get to play as Jill. She goes to meet Hans and they sit together to discuss why Chloe got so mad. Jill remarks on how she can be insensitive sometimes, perhaps even a bit blunt, and then Jill goes to sleep in Hans' room, and then Leo walks in and then kicks them both out. It's kind of annoying, sucks to be him. There's a cut back to Chloe and Lecter, who are now sitting outside. Chloe remarks on her life and says that she wishes she could just have a normal one. She felt so frustrated that she lashed out at Jill. Chloe isn't a saint, she just wants to be seen as a normal girl. And looking back at this door, I now understand why Lecter is here the entire time. And I only realised at this point why he was here. I spent so long trying to figure out, why is Lecter here? Why is he at this school? Lecter was sent here to spy on Chloe as an Imperial spy. Lecter tries to work with Chloe to understand why she's so upset, and for the first time actually get serious with her, asking her to find the answer to his question. Why does she act like this? What does she want from this school? And more importantly, what does she want from her life? As these thoughts race around Chloe's head, she stops to think, why is she even mad? Deep down, she already knew why she was angry. She was scared of losing everything she had built up around her. Scared to accept the fun life she had, knowing that she'd eventually lose it. The next day, Jill goes to the orphanage to better understand Chloe, and by surprise, meets her at the door. Chloe welcomes Jill in, and they both apologize to each other. She explains why she was angry, that Jill had judged the kids and there was no need for it. Chloe takes Jill to meet the sleeping children. In doing so, Chloe is able to accept her feelings about being an orphan, and at the same time, she's able to move forward and accept her life as a student. The next day, we get this scene where we have to try and find Lecter, and there's this rope round the side. I could not find it. I felt like such an idiot not being able to find it. Chloe gives a speech to Lecter about how he helped her, and then she drags him away. After that, the very next day, after Chloe spilled all her feelings to Lecter, he leaves, never to see Chloe or anyone else again, at least until the future. This is my favourite door for a number of reasons. For one, it builds up Chloe and characterises her as this insecure girl or person that I could relate to all too well. The feeling of being in a school and not knowing anyone else there, about feeling lonely and isolated after moving away, is something I can relate to so well. Wanting to leave and go back to the orphanage and go home, but not wanting to go back because you don't want to say that you've given up. You want to be a strong person, but deep down, you're still a little kid. I'm very insecure. It's awesome to see Lecter here, and this is our first introduction to him ever in the Trail series. As a character, I was so intensely hyped to see what the Trail series had in store for him. Whether that was a letdown or not a letdown, I don't know yet, but I'll see.